The stagecoach rattled to a stop in front of the dusty general store, and Beatrice Foster pressed her gloved hand against her churning stomach, willing herself not to be sick right there in front of everyone watching. She had traveled 2,000 miles from Boston to Riverside, California, to marry a man she had never met. And now that the moment had arrived in the scorching August heat of 1882, every instinct screamed at her to climb back into that coach and disappear into the desert landscape that surrounded this small town along the Santa Ana River. The driver opened the door, and Beatrice accepted his weathered hand, stepping down onto the wooden boardwalk with legs that trembled beneath her traveling dress. The fabric clung to her skin, damp with perspiration from the relentless California sun. She was 22 years old, alone, and terrified in a way that went deeper than simple nervousness about meeting her future husband. "Miss Foster." A voice boomed from across the street, and Beatrice turned to see a massive figure striding toward her. The man was easily 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders that blocked out the sun and hands the size of dinner plates. His face was hard, weathered like old leather, with a thick black beard that obscured most of his features. He wore a dusty suit that looked as if it had been pulled from a trunk for this occasion, the fabric straining across his broad chest. "Yes," Beatrice managed to whisper, though her voice was so soft she wondered if he heard her at all. "I am Marcus Hendricks. We have been corresponding these past 4 months." He stopped a few feet away from her, his small dark eyes scanning her up and down in a way that made her skin crawl. "You are smaller than I expected. Hopefully you are strong enough for the work that needs doing." Beatrice felt her throat tighten. In his letters, Marcus had written about his successful ranch, about needing a wife to help manage the household, about wanting children to carry on his legacy. He had never mentioned gentleness or affection or even basic kindness. Standing before him now, Beatrice realized with sinking horror that those omissions had been telling. "I am capable," she said, lifting her chin despite the fear coursing through her veins. She had not come all this way to fall apart on the boardwalk. Her father had died 6 months ago, leaving nothing but debts. Her mother had passed when Beatrice was only 10. She had no siblings, no prospects, and no future in Boston except poverty or worse. Marcus Hendricks had offered marriage, security, and a new life. She had accepted because she had no other choice. "We will see about that," Marcus said gruffly. He gestured to a wagon hitched nearby. "Get your trunk. We need to get back to the ranch before dark." Beatrice stared at him. "Should we not see the minister first? I thought we would be married today." "Tomorrow," Marcus said, already walking toward the wagon. "I need to look over what I am purchasing before I make it legal." The words hit Beatrice like a physical blow. Purchasing. As if she were livestock or property, something to be inspected and evaluated. She stood frozen on the boardwalk, her hands clenched so tightly her nails bit into her palms through her gloves. "Miss Foster needs help with her trunk." The new voice was different, quieter, with a smooth drawl that somehow cut through the noise of the street. Beatrice turned to see a man approaching from the direction of the livery stable. He was tall but not overwhelming, with a lean, muscular build evident even through his worn chambray shirt and leather vest. His hat was pushed back, revealing sun-streaked brown hair and a face that was all sharp angles and sun-bronzed skin. But it was his eyes that caught her attention, green as new spring grass, and looking at her with something she had not expected to see in this harsh place. Concern. "I can handle my own affairs, Grant," Marcus said, his voice taking on a sharp edge. "This does not concern you." "Just being neighborly," the man called Grant replied easily. He moved past Marcus without waiting for permission and hefted Beatrice's heavy trunk as if it weighed nothing. "Where would you like this, miss?" "In the wagon, obviously," Marcus snapped before Beatrice could respond. "Now stop interfering." Grant carried the trunk to the wagon and settled it carefully in the bed. He turned back to Beatrice and touched the brim of his hat. "Welcome to Riverside, Miss Foster. I hope you find it to your liking." "Thank you," Beatrice said softly, grateful for the small kindness. Up close, she could see that Grant was probably in his late 20s, with laugh lines around his eyes and a gentleness in his expression that seemed out of place in this rough country. He wore a gun belt low on his hips, the leather worn and well used, but somehow he did not seem dangerous. Not like Marcus, who made her want to run despite being unarmed. "Get in the wagon," Marcus ordered, and Beatrice reluctantly obeyed, climbing onto the hard wooden seat. Marcus hauled himself up beside her, and the wagon dipped under his weight. He took up the reins without another word and slapped them hard against the horses' backs, sending the animals lurching forward. Beatrice gripped the edge of the seat, looking back once to see Grant standing in the street, watching them leave with an expression she could not quite read. Then the wagon turned a corner, and he disappeared from view. The ride to the ranch took nearly an hour, heading east from the town proper into the dry hills that rose toward the mountains. Marcus did not speak except to grunt occasionally when the wagon hit a particularly deep rut. Beatrice kept her eyes on the landscape, trying to find something beautiful in the golden grass and scattered oak trees, but all she could think about was the way Marcus had looked at her, calculating and cold. The ranch itself was larger than she expected, with a main house built of timber and adobe, a large barn, several outbuildings and corrals that held dozens of horses and cattle. It was clear that Marcus was indeed successful, which should have brought Beatrice some comfort. Instead, it only made her more uneasy. A man with this much property, this much wealth, could do whatever he wanted out here and no one would question him. "Inside," Marcus said, jumping down from the wagon. He did not offer to help Beatrice, and she had to manage the climb down on her own, her travel-sore legs nearly buckling when her feet hit the ground. "The kitchen is through there. There is bread and cheese. Fix me something to eat." He walked away without waiting for a response, heading toward the barn. Beatrice stood in the dusty yard, her carpetbag at her feet, and felt tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. Crying would not help. Nothing would help except enduring whatever came next. The house was dim and cool inside, a relief from the blazing heat outside. The main room was furnished simply with heavy wooden furniture that looked handmade. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust, and Beatrice could see mouse droppings in the corners. Clearly Marcus had not been exaggerating when he said he needed help with the household. She found the kitchen, a large room with a cast-iron stove and a deep sink with a hand pump. There was bread on the table, hard and stale, and a wheel of cheese that had seen better days. Beatrice set about preparing a simple meal, trying to keep her hands from shaking. Marcus came in just as she was setting the plate on the table. He sat down without comment and ate quickly, tearing into the bread and cheese like a man who had not eaten in days. Beatrice stood by the stove, unsure if she was supposed to eat as well or wait for permission. "You can cook?" Marcus asked around a mouthful of bread. "Yes, my mother taught me before she passed." "Good. You will have breakfast ready at 5 each morning, lunch at noon, dinner at 6. I have 2 ranch hands who live in the bunkhouse. They will eat here as well." He finished the last of the cheese and pushed back from the table. "Your room is upstairs, second door on the left. Stay there until I come for you." Beatrice felt ice slip down her spine. "When will that be?" Marcus looked at her, and for the first time, something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "After we are married tomorrow, you will be my wife in truth. But do not worry. I will give you tonight to prepare yourself." He left, his heavy boots thudding on the floorboards. Beatrice heard the front door open and close, and then she was alone. She sank into one of the kitchen chairs, her whole body trembling. This was worse than she had imagined. Marcus was not just cold or distant. There was something cruel in him, something that enjoyed her fear. She did not know how long she sat there before she forced herself to move. Her trunk was still in the wagon outside, and she needed to retrieve it before nightfall. Beatrice went out into the yard, relieved to see that Marcus was nowhere in sight. The sun was lower now, painting the hills gold and orange. In different circumstances, it would have been beautiful. The trunk was heavy, but Beatrice managed to drag it to the edge of the wagon bed. She was trying to figure out how to lower it to the ground without dropping it when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Her heart jumped into her throat, but when she turned, it was not Marcus returning. It was Grant, the man from town, riding a paint horse with white and brown patches across its coat. He dismounted in one smooth motion and walked over to her. "Thought you might need some help with that." "What are you doing here?" Beatrice asked, her voice sharper than she intended. She was too overwhelmed, too frightened to deal with whatever this was. "I work here," Grant said simply. He lifted the trunk easily and set it on the ground. "I am one of Marcus's ranch hands. Have been for about 3 years now. Grant Sullivan, by the way. I should have introduced myself properly in town." "You work for him." Beatrice felt something inside her crumble. If Grant worked for Marcus, then he was not a potential ally. He was just another person she could not trust. Grant seemed to read something in her expression because his face softened. "I work with the horses mostly. Keep to myself. Marcus and I do not exactly see eye to eye on most things." He paused, then added carefully, "If you need anything, Miss Foster, my bunk is the first one on the right in the bunkhouse. Just so you know." Beatrice did not know what to say. She wanted to ask him why he was telling her this, what he thought she might need from him, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she just nodded. "Let me carry this inside for you," Grant said, lifting the trunk again. Beatrice led him into the house and up the narrow stairs to the second floor. The room Marcus had indicated was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a wardrobe. A single window looked out over the yard. Grant set the trunk down at the foot of the bed. He glanced around the room, his jaw tightening. "You should lock your door tonight." "There is no lock," Beatrice said quietly. Grant was silent for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folding knife. He wedged it carefully under the door, testing the angle. "If you put this under the door like this, it will hold it shut. Not perfect, but better than nothing." He held the knife out to her, and Beatrice took it, her fingers brushing his. "Why are you helping me?" "Because someone should," Grant said simply. He met her eyes, and Beatrice saw something there that made her chest ache. Kindness. Real, genuine kindness, the kind she had not seen since her father died. "You deserve better than what you are getting, Miss Foster. I just want you to know that not everyone out here is like Marcus." Before she could respond, they heard the front door open downstairs. Grant moved toward the bedroom door, his whole demeanor changing, becoming more guarded. "I should go. Remember what I said." He left quickly, his footsteps light on the stairs. Beatrice heard low voices from below, Marcus's rumble and Grant's quieter responses. Then the front door closed again, and there was silence. Beatrice sat on the edge of the narrow bed, Grant's knife clutched in her hand, and let herself cry for the first time since leaving Boston. She cried for her father, for the life she had lost, for the future she had hoped for, and the reality she had found instead. She cried until there were no tears left, until she was empty and exhausted. As the light faded outside her window, Beatrice unpacked her trunk, hanging her few dresses in the wardrobe and setting her mother's silver-backed brush on the washstand. She washed her face in the basin, scrubbing away the salt tracks of her tears, and changed into her nightgown. Then, following Grant's advice, she wedged the knife under the door and climbed into bed. She did not expect to sleep, but exhaustion claimed her anyway. Her last thought before darkness took her was of green eyes and a gentle voice offering help she desperately needed, but was afraid to accept. The sound of someone trying the door handle woke her. Beatrice sat up in the darkness, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. The handle turned, but the door did not open, held fast by the knife wedged beneath it. There was a long pause, then heavy footsteps retreating down the hall. Beatrice did not sleep again that night. Morning came with harsh sunlight streaming through the window. Beatrice rose, changed into one of her simpler dresses, and went downstairs, leaving the knife hidden in her pocket. Marcus was already in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee. "You locked your door," he said. "It was not a question." "It must have stuck," Beatrice lied, keeping her voice steady. "Old houses sometimes settle in strange ways." Marcus studied her for a long moment, and Beatrice forced herself to meet his gaze. Finally, he shrugged. "Get breakfast started. We leave for town in an hour. The minister will marry us at 10. Beatrice cooked mechanically, frying salt pork and eggs, making fresh coffee. 2 men came in from outside, and she recognized one as Grant. The other was older, with gray hair and a deeply lined face. Both men nodded to her politely but did not speak, the tension in the room too thick for casual conversation. Grant's eyes found hers once, questioning, and she gave the tiniest nod to let him know she was all right. She saw his shoulders relax slightly. After breakfast, Beatrice changed into her best dress, a deep blue silk that had been her mother's. She pinned her dark blonde hair up carefully and put on her mother's pearl earrings. If she was going to be married, she would at least look like a bride, even if she felt like a prisoner walking to her execution. The ride back to Riverside was silent. Marcus drove the wagon with the same rough handling as the day before, and Beatrice held onto the seat, her stomach churning. She kept thinking about the door handle turning in the night, about what would have happened if Grant had not given her the knife. The church was a small wooden building at the edge of town, painted white but graying with age and weather. The minister was a kind-looking man in his 60s with wire-rimmed spectacles and gentle hands. He smiled at Beatrice warmly. "Welcome, my dear. I am Reverend Thomas." "You must be Miss Foster." He glanced at Marcus. "Shall we begin? Do you have witnesses?" "We do not need witnesses," Marcus said curtly. "Actually, California law requires 2 witnesses for a marriage to be legal," Reverend Thomas said mildly. "Perhaps we could ask some of the townspeople." Marcus looked irritated, but before he could argue, the church door opened. Grant walked in, followed by a woman in her 40s wearing a neat calico dress and a concerned expression. "Reverend Thomas mentioned you might need witnesses," Grant said. "This is Mrs. Catherine Morrison. She runs the boarding house in town. We would be happy to stand for Miss Foster." Beatrice could have kissed him. She saw immediately what he had done, bringing a respectable woman to witness the marriage, someone who might notice if something was wrong. Mrs. Morrison came over to Beatrice and took her hands. "It is lovely to meet you, dear. Welcome to Riverside. That is a beautiful dress." Her eyes searched Beatrice's face, and Beatrice knew the woman saw more than she was saying. "After the ceremony, you must come to tea. I would love to hear all about Boston." "Thank you," Beatrice whispered, grateful beyond words. The ceremony itself was brief. Beatrice repeated her vows in a voice that shook only slightly, sliding her father's gold signet ring onto Marcus's thick finger when prompted. Marcus's vows were perfunctory, and when Reverend Thomas told him he could kiss his bride, He simply nodded at Beatrice as if sealing a business transaction. Grant and Mrs. Morrison signed the marriage certificate as witnesses. Mrs. Morrison pressed a small card into Beatrice's hand. "My boarding house address. If you ever need anything, anything at all, you come find me." "Time to go," Marcus said before Beatrice could respond. He took her arm, his grip just a shade too tight, and steered her toward the door. Beatrice looked back once to see Grant and Mrs. Morrison standing together, both watching with expressions of clear concern. Then Marcus pulled her out into the bright sunshine, and her brief moment of hope faded. The ride back to the ranch felt like a journey to the gallows. Marcus still did not speak, but there was a tension in him now, a coiled anticipation that made Beatrice's skin crawl. She thought about jumping from the wagon, about running into the desert and taking her chances with the heat and the wild animals. Anything seemed preferable to what was waiting for her, but she did not run. She had nowhere to go, no money, no resources. She was trapped as surely as if Marcus had locked her in chains. When they reached the ranch, Marcus pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the house. "I have work to do." "You have work to do. Get the house in order, make dinner. Tonight things will be different." He left her there and strode toward the barn. Beatrice climbed down from the wagon slowly, her legs weak. She went inside and looked around at the dusty, neglected house. Work. She could focus on work. Work would keep her hands busy and her mind from spiraling into panic. She spent the afternoon cleaning, scrubbing floors and washing windows, beating dust from curtains and organizing the kitchen. The physical labor helped, giving her something to focus on besides her fear. She found supplies in the pantry and prepared a beef stew for dinner, letting it simmer on the stove while she continued her work. As the sun began to set, Grant came to the back door. Beatrice let him in, and he looked around at the transformation she had wrought in the house, impressed. "You have been busy." "It needed doing," Beatrice said, stirring the stew. "Will you and the other hand be eating here tonight? Marcus told us to eat in the bunkhouse tonight." Grant's expression was troubled. "Miss Foster, Mrs. Hendricks now," Beatrice corrected automatically. "Beatrice," Grant said quietly, using her first name with an intimacy that should have been improper but somehow felt right. "If things get bad, if he hurts you, I am right outside. You make any kind of noise and I will hear you. I promise." Beatrice turned to look at him. This man who barely knew her but was offering protection he had no obligation to provide. "Why do you care what happens to me?" Grant was quiet for a moment, his green eyes searching her face. "Because from the moment I saw you step off that stagecoach yesterday, looking so scared but trying so hard to be brave, I knew you deserved better than Marcus Hendricks. And because I know what kind of man he is. I have seen how he treats his animals when he thinks no one is watching. I would not let him treat a horse the way I am afraid he will treat you. Then why do you work for him?" The question came out more accusatory than Beatrice intended. "Because I am trying to save enough money to buy my own land," Grant said honestly. "I have been working ranches since I was 16 years old. I am 28 now, and I finally have almost enough saved. 3 more months and I can leave. But until then, I need this job." He moved closer, and Beatrice could smell the clean scent of him, leather and soap and something else, something warm and distinctly masculine that made her pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with fear. "I am not saying this to make you my problem," Grant continued softly. "I am saying it because you need to know that you are not alone. If you need help, I will give it, job or no job. Do you understand?" Beatrice nodded, not trusting her voice. Grant reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement so she could pull away if she wanted. When she did not, he took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle around hers. "You are stronger than you think," he said. "I can see it in you. You will survive this." Then he was gone, slipping out the back door before Beatrice could find words to thank him. She stood in the quiet kitchen, her hand still warm from his touch, and felt something shift inside her. Hope, maybe. Or perhaps just the knowledge that someone saw her, truly saw her, and thought she was worth saving. Marcus came in for dinner as the last light faded from the sky. He ate the stew in silence, then pushed back from the table and looked at Beatrice in a way that made her blood run cold. "Upstairs," he said. "Now." Beatrice's hands trembled as she cleared the dishes. "I should clean up first." "Now." Marcus stood, and his sighs seemed to fill the entire room. Beatrice set down the plates carefully and walked toward the stairs, her legs moving on their own. Marcus followed close behind her, his heavy breathing loud in the quiet house. At the top of the stairs, he pointed to a different door than the one she had slept in the night before. "My room." The room was large and dark, dominated by a massive bed with a heavy wooden frame. Beatrice stood in the doorway, every muscle in her body tense to run. Marcus came up behind her, and she felt his hand on her shoulder, pushing her forward into the room. "Marcus, please," she whispered, hating the pleading in her voice but unable to stop it. "Please, I need time. I am not ready. You are my wife. You do not need to be ready. You just need to obey." His hands moved to the buttons on the back of her dress, fumbling with them roughly. Something inside Beatrice snapped. She spun away from him, putting the bed between them. "No, I cannot do this, not like this. Please, just give me a few days to adjust. I am asking you as your wife." Marcus's face darkened. "You think you can refuse me? You think you have any say in this?" "I think I am a human being who deserves basic kindness." The words burst out of Beatrice before she could stop them. "I came here in good faith. I married you. I am asking for a few days of patience. Is that so much to ask?" For a moment, she thought he would hit her. His hand came up and she flinched, but instead of striking her, he pointed at the door. "Get out. Go back to your own room. But understand this. You are my property now. I own you, same as I own this ranch and every animal on it. You can have 3 days. After that, I will take what is mine, whether you are ready or not." Beatrice fled, her heart pounding. She ran to her room, shut the door, and wedged the knife under it again. Then she sank onto the bed, shaking uncontrollably. 3 days. She had 3 days to figure out what to do. She did not know how long she sat there before she heard a soft tap on her window. Beatrice jumped, then realized the sound was coming from outside. She went to the window and looked down to see Grant standing in the yard below, his face illuminated by the moonlight. Beatrice pushed the window open. "What are you doing?" "Making sure you are all right," Grant called up softly. "I heard shouting. I am fine. I have 3 days." The words came out bitter. Grant was silent for a moment. "Then we have 3 days to figure something out." "There is nothing to figure out. I am married to him. I have no money, no family, nowhere to go." "There is always something," Grant said firmly. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we will talk." He disappeared into the shadows before Beatrice could respond. She closed the window and returned to her bed, but sleep was impossible. Her mind raced through options and found none. She was trapped in a marriage to a man who saw her as property, with only 3 days before he made good on his claim to her. Morning came too quickly. Beatrice rose, dressed, and went downstairs to prepare breakfast. Marcus was already gone, which was a relief. When Grant and the other ranch hand came in, she served them quietly. After the older man left, Grant remained. "We need to talk." "There is nothing to talk about." Beatrice turned away, scrubbing at the dishes with more force than necessary. "There is everything to talk about." Grant moved closer. "Beatrice, you cannot stay here, not with him, not after what I heard last night. I am his wife. I have no choice. You always have a choice." Grant's voice was gentle but insistent. "It might not be an easy choice, but it exists." Beatrice whirled on him, her composure finally cracking. What choice? Run away with no money and no skills except cooking and cleaning, become a prostitute in some mining camp, starve in the desert. Those are not choices, Mr. Sullivan. Those are different ways to die. What if you had money? Grant asked quietly. What if you had enough to get to Los Angeles or even back to San Francisco? You could find work there, real work. There are factories, hotels, wealthy families who need housekeepers or cooks. You could make your own way. I have nothing. Everything I owned is in this house, and it all belongs to Marcus now. Grant reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch. He set it on the table between them. This is everything I have saved over the last 12 years, $340. It is not enough to buy land yet, but it is enough to buy your freedom. Beatrice stared at the pouch as if it might bite her. I cannot take your money. Yes, you can. No, I cannot. That is your future, your land, everything you have worked for. She pushed the pouch back toward him. I will not take that from you. It will not mean anything if I let you suffer when I could have helped. Grant's eyes were intense, willing her to understand. Money is just money. It can be earned again, but you only get one life and you should not have to spend it being afraid. Beatrice felt tears burning at the back of her eyes. Why would you do this for me? You do not even know me. Maybe not, Grant admitted, but I know enough. I know you are kind because you thanked me for a simple courtesy when most people would not have noticed. I know you are brave because you came all this way alone to start a new life. I know you are strong because you are still fighting even though you are terrified. And I know you deserve a chance at happiness, not a life of fear with a man like Marcus Hendricks. The tears spilled over and Beatrice could not stop them. Grant reached out and gently wiped them away with his thumb, his touch so tender it made her ache. I cannot take your money, she whispered. Then take mine and I will take yours, Grant said with a slight smile. We will be partners. You use what you need to get away and get settled. When you can, you pay me back. I will work another year and save again. It is not the end of my dream, just a delay. What if I can never pay you back? Then I guess I will have to come find you and collect my debt personally, Grant said. And there was something in his voice, something warm and promising, that made Beatrice's heart skip. She looked at this man who was offering her everything he had, asking nothing in return except that she save herself. In the harsh territory of her new life, Grant Sullivan was the first truly gentle thing she had encountered. It would be so easy to lean on him, to let him solve her problems, but Beatrice knew that would not be fair to either of them. If I do this, if I take your money and leave, Marcus will be furious, she said slowly. He will come after me, and he will make you pay for helping me. Let me worry about Marcus. No, Beatrice straightened, something hardening inside her. If I am going to do this, if I am going to run, then I need to do it smart. I need to think like someone who wants to survive, not someone who is just running away. Grant looked impressed. What are you thinking? Beatrice's mind was working now, sorting through possibilities. The stagecoach to Los Angeles leaves from Riverside 3 times a week. Next one is tomorrow morning. If I am going to leave, that is when I should go. But I cannot just disappear. Marcus will tear this town apart looking for me, and you will be the first person he suspects. I can handle Marcus. Maybe, but I do not want you to have to. Beatrice paced the kitchen, thinking, I need a reason to be gone that will not immediately point to you. What if I tell Marcus I want to go into town tomorrow morning? I could say I need things for the house, supplies that Mrs. Morrison might have at her boarding house. He might let me go if he thinks I am trying to settle in, trying to be a good wife. That could work, Grant said slowly. I could offer to drive you in the wagon. That would seem natural, and it would give you a way to get to town without raising suspicion. And once I am there, I get on the stagecoach and leave. By the time Marcus realizes I am not coming back, I will be miles away." Grant nodded, but his expression was troubled. "You know he will still come after you eventually. A man like Marcus does not let go of what he thinks belongs to him." "Then I will stay ahead of him. I will change my name, find work somewhere he would not think to look. I will disappear." Beatrice said it with more confidence than she felt, but she was committed now. The alternative was too terrible to contemplate. "What about an annulment?" Grant asked. "If the marriage was never consummated, you might be able to get it dissolved legally." "That would take time and money and a lawyer willing to take on Marcus Hendricks." Beatrice shook her head. "No, running is simpler. Running is safer." They spent the next hour working out the details. Grant would hide his money in Beatrice's carpetbag that very night. In the morning, Beatrice would ask Marcus about going to town. If he agreed, she and Grant would leave early before Marcus could change his mind. If Marcus refused, they would need another plan. As Grant stood to leave, he paused at the door. "Beatrice, I need you to know something. If this does not work, if you need another option, there is one more thing I can offer." "What is that?" "Me." Grant met her eyes steadily. "If you wanted to leave with me instead of alone, I would go with you. We could say we are married, travel as husband and wife. It would be safer for you that way, and it would give you protection from men who might take advantage of a woman traveling alone." Beatrice's breath caught. "You would give up everything for me. Your job, your savings, your chance at land." "I would give up anything to keep you safe," Grant said simply. "But I am not offering that because I expect something from you. I am offering it because it is the right thing to do. You can say no, and I will help you leave anyway. The choice is yours, always." He left before she could respond, and Beatrice was grateful. She did not know what to say, did not know how to process the fact that this near stranger was willing to sacrifice his entire future for her. It was overwhelming and humbling and terrifying all at once. That night at dinner, Beatrice brought up the idea of going to town. "I was thinking, Marcus, the house needs many things to be properly run. Linens, proper cleaning supplies, perhaps some curtains for the windows. Mrs. Morrison mentioned she has a store at her boarding house. I could go tomorrow and see what she has." Marcus looked at her suspiciously. "Why did you not get these things yesterday?" "Yesterday was our wedding day. It did not seem appropriate to think about curtains." Beatrice kept her voice mild, unthreatening. "But now that I am your wife, I want to make this house a proper home. That is what you wanted, is it not? A well-run household." She could see him considering it, weighing whether this was some kind of trick. Finally, he grunted. "Fine. But take Grant with you." "I need the wagon here so you will ride. You can ride a horse." "Yes," Beatrice lied. She had never been on a horse in her life, but she would figure it out. "Be back by noon. I want lunch ready on time." "Of course." Beatrice cleared the dishes, her heart pounding. It had worked. She had bought herself a way to town. Later that night, after Marcus had retired to his room, Beatrice heard a soft scratch at her door. She opened it a crack to find Grant standing there with her carpetbag. "I put the money in the false bottom," he whispered. "Along with a letter of introduction to a friend of mine in Los Angeles. His name is William Chen. He runs a restaurant in Chinatown. He might be able to help you find work or at least point you in the right direction. Thank you." Beatrice took the bag, feeling the weight of Grant's sacrifice. "I will pay you back, I swear it." "I know you will." Grant smiled, and even in the dim light, Beatrice could see the warmth in his eyes. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a long day." Beatrice barely slept, too keyed up with nerves and anticipation. When dawn came, she dressed carefully in her traveling clothes and pinned her hair up securely. She went downstairs to prepare breakfast, moving through the routine automatically while her mind raced ahead to the escape waiting in town. Grant came in just as she was serving Marcus his eggs. "I will saddle a horse for Mrs. Hendricks. Which one should I use?" "The bay mare," Marcus said around a mouthful of food. "She is gentle enough for a woman, and Grant, keep an eye on her. Make sure she does not do anything foolish." "Yes, sir," Grant said neutrally. Beatrice forced herself to eat a few bites of breakfast, knowing she would need her strength. When Marcus finished and left for the barn, she quickly cleared the dishes and grabbed her carpetbag. Grant was waiting outside with 2 horses, a bay mare and his paint gelding. He helped Beatrice mount, his hands steadying her as she struggled to figure out how to sit in the side saddle. "Just hold onto the saddle horn and trust the horse," he murmured. "She knows what to do." They set off at a walk, and Beatrice concentrated on not falling off. The ride to town felt like it took forever, every minute stretching into eternity. She kept expecting to hear Marcus behind them, demanding to know where she thought she was going. But the road stayed empty, and eventually, the buildings of Riverside came into view. "The stagecoach leaves in an hour," Grant said quietly. "I will help you get your ticket and see you safely aboard. What will you tell the driver about where you are going?" "Los Angeles, then maybe further north to San Francisco. I speak French and a little Spanish. Perhaps I can find work as a governess or a teacher." Beatrice had been thinking about this all night, forming a plan. "I will say my husband died and I am traveling to stay with family." They reached the town, and Grant helped her down from the horse in front of the small station where the stagecoach would arrive. He purchased her ticket with some of his money, telling the clerk she was a recent widow traveling north. The clerk barely looked at them, bored and indifferent. With 45 minutes until departure, Grant insisted on taking Beatrice to the cafe for coffee and something to eat. As they sat in the quiet corner of the establishment, Beatrice found herself memorizing his face, the way the morning light caught in his green eyes, the strong line of his jaw, the gentle curve of his smile. "I do not know how to thank you," she said softly. "You have given me my life back." "You do not need to thank me. Just promise me you will be safe, that you will be happy." Grant reached across the table and took her hand. "And maybe, if you can, send word to Mrs. Morrison that you arrived safely. She will pass the message to me. I promise." Beatrice turned her hand in his, lacing their fingers together. "What will you tell Marcus when he asks where I am?" "The truth. That I took you to town, that you went into Mrs. Morrison's boarding house, and when I came back to get you, you were gone. He will know I helped you, but he will not be able to prove anything." Grant's expression darkened. "I expect I will lose my job, maybe worse, but it will be worth it." "Grant, no, he could hurt you. He could try." Grant's smile was grim. "But I am not helpless, and I am not afraid of Marcus Hendricks. You let me worry about myself. You just worry about staying safe and starting your new life." The stagecoach pulled up outside with a clatter of hooves and creak of wheels. Grant walked Beatrice out, carrying her carpetbag. The driver, an older man with a weathered face, helped her aboard. Grant handed up her bag, then stepped back. For a moment, they just looked at each other, and Beatrice felt something enormous swelling in her chest, something she could not name but desperately wanted to hold on to. "Goodbye, Grant Sullivan," she said, her voice thick with unshed tears. "I will never forget what you did for me." "This is not goodbye," Grant said firmly. "This is just farewell for now. I have a feeling our paths will cross again." The driver cracked his whip, and the stagecoach lurched forward. Beatrice twisted in her seat to watch Grant standing in the street, his hand raised in farewell, until the coach turned a corner and he disappeared from view. Then she faced forward and let herself cry, great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. She cried for the life she had thought she would have, for the fear and terror of the last 3 days, for the man she was leaving behind who had shown her more kindness than she had ever known. The other passengers in the coach, 2 men and an elderly woman, politely ignored her, and Beatrice was grateful. By the time they stopped at the first way station to change horses, Beatrice had composed herself. She ate lunch mechanically, used the facilities, and climbed back into the coach for the next leg of the journey. As the miles passed and Riverside fell further and further behind, she began to breathe easier. She was free. For the first time in her life, Beatrice was truly free, beholden to no one, owned by no one. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. The journey to Los Angeles took 2 full days, with overnight stops at way stations along the route. Beatrice kept to herself, speaking only when necessary, playing the role of the grieving widow. When she finally arrived in Los Angeles, she was exhausted, covered in dust, and more determined than ever to make this new start work. Los Angeles in 1882 was a growing city, still rough around the edges but developing rapidly with the arrival of the railroad. Beatrice found a small boarding house for women run by a stern-faced widow named Mrs. Eleanor Banks. The room was tiny and the bed hard, but it was clean and safe, and that was all that mattered. The next morning, Beatrice set out to find Grant's friend, William Chen. The restaurant was in a busy section of the city, a small but immaculately clean establishment with Chinese characters painted on the window. Inside, the air smelled of ginger and soy sauce, and something sweet Beatrice could not identify. A young Chinese man approached her, his expression polite but reserved. "Can I help you? I am looking for Mr. William Chen. A friend sent me." Beatrice pulled out Grant's letter of introduction. The young man took the letter, read it quickly, then nodded. "Please wait here." A few minutes later, an older Chinese man emerged from the back. He was probably in his 50s, with silver threading through his black hair and keen, intelligent eyes. He read the letter more slowly, then looked at Beatrice with something that might have been sympathy. "You are the woman Grant mentioned, the one who needed help." His English was accented but clear. "He said you were running from a bad situation, that you needed work and discretion." "Yes, sir. I am a hard worker. I can cook and clean. I can read and write and do figures. I will do whatever honest work is available." William Chen studied her for a long moment. "Can you wash dishes?" "Yes. The work is hard. The hours are long. You would start before dawn and finish after dark. The pay is not much, but I provide 1 meal a day and can recommend a good boarding house. I already have lodgings at Mrs. Banks's establishment." William nodded approvingly. "Eleanor is a good woman, very proper. That is wise." He paused, then added, "I will give you a trial, 1 week. If you work as hard as Grant thinks you will, the job is yours permanently. But if you bring trouble to my door, you will leave immediately. I have a family to protect." "I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chen. I will not let you down." Beatrice started work that very afternoon, scrubbing pots in the steaming kitchen while William's wife and daughters prepared food. It was grueling work, her hands soon raw and aching, but Beatrice welcomed the exhaustion. It kept her from thinking too much about what she had left behind, about the cowboy with green eyes who had sacrificed so much for her. True to his word, William kept her on after the trial week. Beatrice fell into a routine: rise before dawn, work at the restaurant until late evening, return to her boarding house, collapse into bed, and do it all again the next day. She sent a brief letter to Mrs. Morrison in Riverside, saying only that she had arrived safely in Los Angeles and was working. She did not mention Grant by name, but she hoped Mrs. Morrison would pass the message along. Weeks passed, then months. Beatrice's hands grew calloused, her arms stronger. She learned to cook Chinese food under the patient instruction of William's wife, discovering she had a talent for it. William began teaching her the business side of running a restaurant, showing her how to order supplies, manage inventory, and keep the books. "You have a good head for numbers," he told her one evening as they went over the accounts together. "Better than mine, I think." "Have you thought about what you want to do long term?" "I do not know," Beatrice admitted. "I am just focused on surviving right now. Planning for the future feels like a luxury I cannot afford yet." "Surviving is important," William agreed, "but so is living. You should think about what would make you happy, not just what would keep you safe." That night, Beatrice lay in her narrow bed and thought about happiness. She thought about Grant, about the way he had looked at her with such gentleness, the way his touch had made her feel protected rather than threatened. She thought about his green eyes and his quiet strength, and the way he had given up everything for her without asking for anything in return. She missed him. The realization hit her with surprising force. She missed a man she had known for only 3 days, a man who was probably furious with her for disappearing without a real goodbye, a man who had sacrificed his dreams because of her. Beatrice rolled over and tried to sleep, but Grant's face haunted her dreams. The next morning, a letter arrived at the restaurant for her. William brought it to her with a curious expression. "This was left at the front. Someone dropped it off early this morning." Beatrice's hands shook as she opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a brief message in neat, masculine handwriting. "I hope this finds you well, and that Los Angeles is treating you kindly. Things here are complicated, but manageable. Your former situation has resolved itself in an unexpected way. I thought you would want to know that you are free, truly free. I am working at the Chen Ranch now, 10 miles south of Los Angeles. If you ever need anything, or if you just want to talk, I would welcome a visit. Grant." Beatrice read the letter 3 times, her heart pounding. Grant was here, in Los Angeles, working nearby, and something about her former situation had resolved itself. What did that mean? She thought about it all day as she worked, her mind turning over the possibilities. That evening she asked William about the Chen Ranch. "My cousin's place," William said. "He raises horses, very successful. Why do you ask? I have a friend working there. Grant Sullivan. He is the one who wrote the letter of introduction for me." William's expression shifted to understanding. "Ah, the cowboy who helped you escape. I wondered about him. Michael mentioned hiring a new man a few months ago, said he was an excellent horseman. That must be your Grant." "He is not my Grant," Beatrice protested, but even she could hear how weak the denial sounded. William just smiled. "Your day off is Sunday. The ranch is an hour's walk, less if you catch a ride on a supply wagon. I am sure Michael would not mind if you visited." Beatrice wrestled with herself for the next 3 days. She wanted desperately to see Grant, to thank him properly, to understand what his letter meant. But she was also afraid. Afraid of what she might feel when she saw him again, afraid of obligations she could not meet, afraid of wanting something she could not have. In the end, her curiosity and her need to see him won out. On Sunday morning, Beatrice dressed in her best day dress, a simple gray cotton that she had purchased with her first wages, and set out for the Chen Ranch. The walk was longer than she expected, following a dusty road south through farmland and orchards. The September heat was oppressive, and Beatrice was sweating through her dress by the time she finally saw the ranch buildings in the distance. The Chen Ranch was smaller than Marcus's spread, but far more organized and well-maintained. The corrals held dozens of beautiful horses in various colors, and Beatrice could see several men working with them, training them with patience and skill. One of the men looked up as she approached, and Beatrice's breath caught. Grant. He was shirtless in the heat, his tanned skin glistening with sweat as he worked a rope around a young buckskin horse. He saw her and went completely still, the rope falling slack in his hands. Then he was moving, vaulting over the corral fence and striding toward her with an expression of such joy and relief that Beatrice felt tears spring to her eyes. "Beatrice," he said, stopping a few feet away as if afraid she might disappear if he got too close. "You came. Your letter said I was welcome. You are, always." Grant seemed to remember his state of undress and looked around for his shirt, which was hanging on a fence post. He pulled it on quickly, though he did not bother with the buttons. "Come on, there is shade by the house. You look like you are about to melt." He led her to a covered porch where a pitcher of water sat on a small table. Grant poured her a glass and Beatrice drank gratefully. "You walked all the way from town?" Grant asked, sitting beside her on the bench. "Yes. I should have thought about the heat, but I did not want to wait. You could have sent word, I would have come to you. I wanted to see you." The words came out before Beatrice could stop them. "Your letter said my former situation had resolved itself. What did that mean?" Grant's expression grew serious. "Marcus is dead." Beatrice felt the glass slip from her fingers. It hit the wooden planks of the porch and shattered, water spreading in a dark stain. "What?" "About a month after you left. He was breaking a wild horse, trying to prove how tough he was. The horse threw him. He hit his head on a rock and died instantly." Grant picked up the pieces of broken glass carefully, not looking at her. "It was an accident, witnessed by 3 ranch hands. The sheriff investigated and ruled it accidental death. I do not understand. If that happened a month after I left, why did you wait so long to tell me?" "Because it took me this long to be sure it really was an accident," Grant said quietly. "There were some people who thought maybe it was not, thought maybe I had something to do with it because of you. The sheriff questioned me extensively. I had an alibi, I was in town that whole day, but people talked anyway." Beatrice felt cold despite the heat. "People thought you killed him." "Some people thought we killed him together, that I helped you escape and then went back to make sure Marcus could not come after you." Grant finally met her eyes. "It was not true, but it made things difficult for a while. That is why I had to leave Riverside. Too many people looking at me sideways, too many questions. Michael Chen offered me work here and I took it." "I am so sorry," Beatrice whispered. "You lost your job, your reputation, all because of me." "I lost nothing that mattered," Grant said firmly, "and I gained a hell of a lot more. Michael pays me better than Marcus ever did, treats his workers like human beings, and I have learned more about training horses in 3 months here than I did in 3 years at the Hendricks Ranch. So please do not feel sorry for me. I am doing just fine. But your savings, your dream of buying land, still possible, just delayed." Grant smiled. "Besides, the best part of working here is being close enough to check on you. William says you are doing well at the restaurant. William is your cousin by marriage, distant cousin, but yes. He was happy to help when I explained your situation." Grant hesitated, then added, "The reason I am telling you about Marcus now is that you are free, Beatrice, truly free. You are a widow. You can use your own name again. You can go wherever you want, do whatever you want. No one is hunting you. No one is coming after you. You are safe." The relief that crashed over Beatrice was so intense she thought she might faint. "I am free," she whispered. "You are free," Grant confirmed. He reached out and took her hand, just as he had that day in the cafe before she left Riverside. "So what do you want to do with that freedom?" Beatrice looked at their joined hands, at the calluses on Grant's fingers from rope and leather, at the careful gentleness of his grip. She thought about the last 4 months, about the back-breaking work at the restaurant, about the tiny room at the boarding house, about the loneliness that had become her constant companion. She thought about the life she had been building, small and safe and entirely her own. And then she thought about how none of it felt like enough, because the whole time she had been missing this man who had given up everything for her. "I want to be happy," she said slowly. "I want to live, not just survive. I want to figure out what makes my heart sing instead of what keeps me fed and clothed." "That is a good start," Grant said softly. "What else?" "I want to know if you meant what you said back in Riverside, about going with me, about protecting me." Beatrice forced herself to meet his eyes. "Was that just about saving me from Marcus, or was there more to it?" Grant was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. "If I am being honest, from the moment I saw you step off that stagecoach, something in me recognized something in you. I do not know how else to explain it. It was like my soul woke up and said, 'Pay attention. This one matters.' And the more I got to know you, even in those few short days, the more certain I became that you were someone special, someone worth protecting." "Someone worth," he stopped, and Beatrice could see him struggling with the words. "Someone worth what?" she pressed gently. "Someone worth loving," Grant finished quietly. "I know it is too soon. I know we barely know each other. I know you have been through hell, and the last thing you need is some cowboy complicating your life. But you asked for honesty, so there it is. I have been half in love with you since the day we met, and the feeling has only gotten stronger every day you have been gone." Beatrice's heart was pounding so hard she was sure Grant could hear it. "You barely know me. I know the important things. I know you are brave and strong and determined. I know you are kind even when people do not deserve it. I know you work harder than anyone I have ever met. I know you cry when you are alone because you think no one will see, but you never let anyone else see you break. I know you deserve to be cherished, not owned. And I know that I would spend the rest of my life trying to make you happy if you would let me. Grant." Beatrice did not know what to say. Part of her wanted to throw her arms around him and kiss him and tell him yes, yes to everything he was offering. But another part, the part that had been so badly hurt, was terrified of trusting again. "You do not have to say anything," Grant said, reading her expression. "I am not Marcus. I am not going to demand anything from you or force you to decide before you are ready. I just wanted you to know how I feel, so there are no secrets between us. You are free, Beatrice. Free to choose your own path, whatever that might be." Beatrice took a shaky breath. "What if I do not know what I want? Then take your time figuring it out. I will be here. I am not going anywhere." Grant squeezed her hand gently. "In the meantime, can we at least be friends? Can I come visit you in town sometimes, or you come here? I have missed you something fierce these last months. I would really like to have you in my life, in whatever capacity you are comfortable with." "I would like that," Beatrice said, and she found it was true. Whatever her confused feelings might be, she knew with certainty that she wanted Grant in her life. "I have missed you too." They spent the rest of the afternoon together. Grant showed her around the ranch, introducing her to the horses and explaining how he was training them. Beatrice was fascinated by the patience and gentleness he showed the animals, the way he talked to them in a low, soothing voice and rewarded even the smallest signs of progress. "You are really good at this," she said, watching him work with a skittish mare. "I love it," Grant said simply. "Always have. There is something about earning a horse's trust, showing them they do not have to be afraid, that just feels right to me." Beatrice heard the parallel he was not quite making. He was trying to earn her trust the same way, showing her through his actions and his patience that she did not have to be afraid of him. It was working, she realized. Every minute she spent with Grant, she felt safer, more settled, more like herself. As the sun began to set, Grant walked her back toward town, insisting she not make the return trip alone in the dark. They talked the whole way, sharing stories about their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Grant told her about growing up on a ranch in Texas, about his parents dying when he was 15, about making his own way in the world ever since. Beatrice told him about her mother's death, about her father's slow decline, about the loneliness of being the only child and having no extended family. "We are both orphans, then," Grant observed as they reached the outskirts of Los Angeles, "making our own families as we go." "I suppose we are," Beatrice agreed. She paused at the corner where they would need to part ways. "Thank you for today. It meant more to me than you know." "Can I come see you next Sunday?" Grant asked. "Maybe we could have lunch or go for a walk. I promise to keep my declarations of love to myself for at least a few more months." Beatrice laughed, the sound surprising her. When was the last time she had genuinely laughed? "Yes. I would like that very much." Grant smiled, and in the fading light, Beatrice thought he was one of the most handsome men she had ever seen. Not because of his features, though those were certainly pleasing, but because of the warmth and kindness that radiated from him. "Good night, Beatrice," he said softly. For a moment she thought he might kiss her, and she was not sure if she was relieved or disappointed when he just touched the brim of his hat and turned to walk back toward the ranch. Beatrice watched him go, then made her way to the boarding house. That night, she wrote 2 letters. The first was to Mrs. Morrison in Riverside, thanking her for her kindness and letting her know that Beatrice was safe and well. The second was to the county clerk in Riverside, inquiring about what would need to be done to officially record Marcus Hendricks's death and establish Beatrice as his widow and heir. She did not want Marcus's ranch or his money if there was any left, but she needed the official documentation to prove she was free. She needed that paper trail to protect herself and to close that chapter of her life completely. Over the next several weeks, Beatrice and Grant fell into a comfortable pattern. He came to visit her every Sunday, and sometimes she would make the trip out to the Chen Ranch during the week if she could get away early from the restaurant. They talked for hours, discovering shared interests and laughing at each other's stories. Grant never pushed for more than friendship, never tried to kiss her or pressure her into any kind of physical intimacy. He was simply present, patient, and kind. Beatrice found herself falling in love with him slowly, like watching the sunrise. It crept up on her, growing brighter and more beautiful by degrees until one day she looked at him and realized she could not imagine her life without him in it. The realization both thrilled and terrified her. She had been married before, legally bound to a man who had treated her like property. The idea of entering into another commitment, even with someone as wonderful as Grant, made her anxious. One November afternoon, as they sat on the porch of the Chen Ranch watching the horses graze in the golden light, Beatrice finally voiced her fears. "What if I am broken?" she asked quietly. "What if what happened with Marcus damaged me in some way that I cannot be a proper wife to anyone?" Grant was silent for a moment, considering his words carefully. "First, you are not broken. You are wounded, which is different. Wounds heal given time and care. Second, I do not want a proper wife, whatever that means. I want you exactly as you are. And third, we do not have to figure out marriage right now or ever if you do not want to. I am happy just being with you. You say that now, but eventually you will want more. You should want more. You deserve a full life, not half a relationship with a woman who is too scared to stop," Grant interrupted gently. He took both her hands in his. "Listen to me. I love you, Beatrice, not someday, not eventually. Now, today, I love your strength and your courage. I love how hard you work and how determined you are to build a life for yourself. I love the way you laugh when something genuinely amuses you, like it surprises you every time. I love that you are cautious and careful, because it means you are protecting yourself the way you should have been protected all along." He paused, making sure she was really hearing him. "And yes, someday I would love to marry you, to build a life together, to have children if you want them. But I am in no rush. We have time. We have all the time you need. And if you decide you never want to marry again, I will still be here, loving you, being your friend and your partner in whatever way you will have me." Beatrice felt tears sliding down her face. "How are you real? How did I get so lucky as to meet someone like you?" "I think we both got lucky," Grant said softly. He reached up and wiped away her tears with his thumbs, his touch as gentle as always. "And I think maybe we should stop questioning it and just be grateful." "I love you too," Beatrice whispered. "I have for a while now. I was just too afraid to admit it." Grant's smile was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. "You love me." "Yes, terrifying as it is, yes. I love you, Grant Sullivan." This time when Grant leaned in, Beatrice did not pull away. His lips met hers softly, questioningly, giving her every opportunity to change her mind. But Beatrice did not want to change her mind. She kissed him back, pouring all her fear and hope and love into that single moment of connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Grant rested his forehead against hers. "I am going to spend every day for the rest of my life showing you that you do not have to be afraid, that love does not have to hurt, that you are safe with me always." "I believe you," Beatrice said, and realized it was true. She did believe him. Maybe she was not completely healed yet, maybe there were still scars that ached on cold days, but she trusted Grant in a way she had never trusted anyone before. They sat together as the sun set, wrapped in each other's arms, and Beatrice felt something settle deep in her chest. Peace. Maybe even happiness. It felt fragile, like something that could be broken if she was not careful, but it was real. As autumn turned to winter, their relationship deepened. Grant was offered a partnership in the Chen Ranch, recognition of his skill with horses and his dedication to the business. The offer came with a small house on the property and a percentage of the profits. Grant accepted, though he told Beatrice privately that he would not make any major life decisions without including her. "This is your decision," Beatrice insisted. "Your career, your future." "You are my future," Grant replied simply. "Everything else is just details." In December, Grant asked Beatrice to marry him properly. He did not go down on one knee or make a grand gesture. Instead, he simply said over dinner one evening at the restaurant, "I know I said I would not push, but I have to ask, will you marry me? Not because you need protection or security, but because you want to build a life with me." Beatrice looked at this man who had changed her entire world, who had shown her what real love looked like, who had been patient and kind and gentle even when it cost him dearly. She thought about the life they could have together, the partnership they had already built, the way he made her feel safe and cherished. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Yes, I will marry you." Grant's whoop of joy startled everyone in the restaurant. He jumped up, came around the table, and swept Beatrice into his arms, spinning her around while she laughed and protested. William and his family came out of the kitchen to see what the commotion was, and when Grant announced they were engaged, everyone cheered. They were married on a sunny day in January of 1883, exactly 5 months after Beatrice had first arrived in Los Angeles. The ceremony was held at the Chen Ranch, with William's family and all the ranch hands in attendance. Mrs. Morrison made the trip down from Riverside to serve as Beatrice's witness, bringing news that the Hendricks Ranch had been sold and the proceeds donated to the local school, as Marcus had no living relatives and Beatrice had refused any claim to his estate. "I want nothing from that place," Beatrice had told Grant firmly. "That part of my life is over." This wedding was nothing like her first. Beatrice wore a dress that William's daughters had helped her make, a beautiful cream-colored silk with lace at the collar and cuffs. Grant wore his best suit, cleaned and pressed until it looked almost new. The minister was the same Reverend Thomas who had married her to Marcus, but this time his smile was genuine as he pronounced them husband and wife. When Grant kissed her, it was tender and sweet and full of promise. Beatrice kissed him back, unafraid and hopeful in a way she had never been before. The celebration that followed was joyful and loud, with music and dancing and more food than Beatrice had seen in months. She danced with Grant, with William, with several of the ranch hands who promised to keep her husband in line. She laughed until her sides hurt and felt happier than she had thought possible. As the sun set and the party began to wind down, Grant led Beatrice to the small house that was now theirs. It was simple but comfortable, with 2 rooms and a small kitchen. Grant had spent weeks fixing it up, repairing the roof, painting the walls, building furniture with his own hands. "Welcome home, Mrs. Sullivan," he said softly, carrying her over the threshold in the traditional way. "Home," Beatrice repeated, looking around at the cozy space that they would share. "I like the sound of that." That night, Grant showed Beatrice what gentleness truly felt like. He was patient and careful, checking with her at every step, making sure she was comfortable and safe. When she tensed up, he slowed down. When she needed him to stop, he did without question or complaint. He made the experience about her pleasure and her comfort, about showing her that physical intimacy could be beautiful and loving and mutual. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in their marriage bed, Beatrice cried, not from fear or pain, but from relief and gratitude and overwhelming emotion. "Did I hurt you?" Grant asked immediately, pulling back to look at her face. "No," Beatrice said through her tears. "No, you did everything perfectly. I did not know it could be like this. I did not know I could feel this way. Thank you for being so patient with me." Grant kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "I love you, Beatrice. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never forget what that means." And he did. Over the months and years that followed, Grant proved his love in 1,000 small ways. He brought her coffee in the morning and rubbed her feet at night. He listened when she talked about her day and remembered the little details she mentioned. He supported her when she decided to leave the restaurant and start her own small bakery in town, selling bread and pastries to local businesses. He celebrated her successes and comforted her through her failures. In the summer of 1884, Beatrice discovered she was pregnant. She was terrified at first, worried that motherhood would somehow trap her or take away the freedom she had worked so hard to achieve. But Grant was thrilled and supportive, making it clear that whatever she decided, he would stand by her. "This is our baby," he said, his hand resting gently on her still flat stomach. "Ours to raise together as partners. You are not alone in this, and you never will be." Their son was born in March of 1885, a healthy baby boy with Grant's green eyes and Beatrice's dark hair. They named him Thomas, after Reverend Thomas, who had witnessed both of Beatrice's weddings and had become a good friend. Grant was a natural father, patient and gentle with the baby, getting up for night feedings and changing diapers without complaint, watching her husband cradle their son, singing soft lullabies in his deep voice. Beatrice felt her heart swell with love so intense it was almost painful. This was what she had always wanted, even when she did not know enough to name it. A partner, not a master. Love, not ownership. A family built on mutual respect and affection, not duty and fear. 2 years later, they had a daughter, Sarah, named for Beatrice's mother. Sarah was followed by another boy, James, and then twin girls, Emma and Rose. The small house on the Chen Ranch grew crowded, so Grant and Michael expanded it, adding rooms and a larger kitchen to accommodate their growing family. Beatrice's bakery flourished, becoming known throughout Los Angeles for its excellent bread and pastries. She hired help as the business grew, training young women and paying them fair wages. She became known as a generous employer, someone who gave second chances to women who needed them, women like she had once been. Grant eventually bought out Michael's share of the ranch, becoming the sole owner of a thriving horse training business. He was known for his gentle methods and his ability to work with even the most difficult horses. People came from all over California to buy horses trained by Grant Sullivan. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Grant took Beatrice to the beach in Santa Monica. They left the children with William's family and spent the day walking along the shore, talking and laughing like they had when they were first courting. "You ever regret it?" Beatrice asked as they sat in the sand, watching the sun set over the Pacific. "Giving up your savings for me, putting your dreams on hold?" "Not for a single second," Grant said firmly. He pulled her close, and Beatrice rested her head on his shoulder. "You were not a delay to my dreams, Beatrice. You were the dream. Everything else, the ranch, the horses, the business, that was all just extra. You and our children, our life together, that is what I was really working toward all along. I just did not know it until I met you." Beatrice tilted her face up to kiss him. "I love you, Grant Sullivan. Thank you for showing me what gentleness feels like, what real love feels like." "I love you too," Grant murmured against her lips, "and I will keep showing you every day for the rest of our lives." As the years passed, that promise never wavered. Through good times and hard times, through the joys and challenges of raising 5 children, through the growth of their businesses and the inevitable setbacks that came with life, Grant and Beatrice faced everything together as true partners. They watched their children grow into fine young people. Thomas became a veterinarian, studying at the new university in Berkeley before returning to Los Angeles to open his own practice. Sarah became a teacher, dedicating herself to educating children in underserved communities. James followed in his father's footsteps, working with horses and eventually taking over the ranch when Grant was ready to retire. The twins, Emma and Rose, opened a dress shop together, creating beautiful gowns for the growing population of wealthy women in Los Angeles. Beatrice and Grant became grandparents, then great-grandparents, watching their family tree branch and grow in ways they had never imagined during those dark, frightening days when they first met. They remained active in their community, known for their generosity and kindness, always willing to help someone in need. On their 50th wedding anniversary in 1933, their children and grandchildren threw them a massive celebration at the ranch. The property had grown over the years, but the original house where they had lived as newlyweds still stood, preserved and cherished as the foundation of everything they had built together. Grant was 78 years old now, his brown hair gone silver, his face deeply lined but still handsome to Beatrice's eyes. Beatrice was 73, her dark blonde hair faded to white, her hands gnarled from decades of work, but her spirit as strong as ever. They stood together in the yard where Grant had first taught Beatrice to ride a horse, surrounded by 3 generations of their descendants, and Grant raised his glass. 50 years ago today, I married the bravest, strongest, most amazing woman I have ever known. She changed my life in every possible way, all for the better. Beatrice, my love, my partner, thank you for choosing me. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for building this incredible life with me." Beatrice raised her own glass, tears streaming down her face. "And thank you, my darling Grant, for showing me what gentleness felt like, for teaching me that love could be safe and beautiful and real. for giving me a family and a home and a life beyond anything I ever dared to dream. You saved me in every way a person can be saved." Their family cheered and clapped, and Grant pulled Beatrice into his arms for a kiss that was tender despite their age, full of all the love and devotion they had shared for half a century. That night, lying in their bed in the house that had witnessed so much of their life together, Beatrice reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the terrified mail-order bride stepping off a stagecoach in Riverside to the confident, successful woman she was today, surrounded by love and security and happiness she had earned through her own strength and Grant's unwavering support. "What are you thinking about?" Grant asked, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting on his chest the way it had on their wedding night 50 years ago. "I am thinking about how grateful I am," Beatrice said softly. "How different my life could have been if you had not been there that day in Riverside. If you had not shown me kindness when I desperately needed it, if you had not been willing to sacrifice everything to help someone you barely knew." "I would do it all again in a heartbeat," Grant said, kissing the top of her head. "Every sacrifice, every hardship, it was all worth it to have this life with you." "I love you," Beatrice whispered, "more today than I did 50 years ago, if that is even possible." "It is possible," Grant assured her, "because I feel the same way." They fell asleep in each other's arms, the way they had nearly every night for 5 decades, and Beatrice's last conscious thought was one of perfect contentment. She had found her home, not in a place but in a person, in the gentle cowboy who had shown her that love did not have to hurt, that marriage could be a partnership of equals, that she deserved to be cherished and protected and respected. Grant Sullivan had been her savior, her partner, her greatest love. He had shown her what gentleness felt like, and in doing so had given her back her life. And Beatrice had loved him fiercely in return, building a family and a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. It was more than she had ever hoped for, more than she had thought possible during those dark days in 1882, when she had stepped off the stagecoach in Riverside, afraid and alone. She had survived, but more than that, she had thrived. And it was all because one good man had decided that she was worth saving, and then had spent the rest of his life proving it. As Beatrice drifted into sleep, safe and warm in Grant's embrace, she smiled. Her journey had been difficult, marked by fear and pain and hard choices. But it had led her here to this perfect moment, to a life filled with love and purpose and joy. And she would not change a single moment of it, because every trial had been necessary to bring her to where she belonged. In the end, the mail-order bride had found far more than she had ever bargained for. She had found herself, her strength, her voice, and her purpose. And she had found a love that was truly gentle, truly kind, truly lasting. It was everything she had never known to ask for, and it was perfect.